Hi guys, today I'm going to be doing makeup on my best friend. First thing I'm going to use is Anastasia Brow Freeze. It's just like an edge control and I'm just going to brush that through her brows. The spoolie and angled brush that I'm using is also from Anastasia Beverly Hills. The idea is to get the hairs all facing the same direction just to make sure that it's shaped the way I would draw it, but I'm not going to use any pencil or any pomade products. I find that the brow freeze is a lot more cleaner than the soap brows. Sometimes you would get quite a bit of the soap product on the outside of the eyebrow hairs, but this is very precise. But I think the hold is the same. Now I'm going to conceal using Too Faced Concealer Sand. I start by doing a rough line underneath the brow with a little bit of gap, and then I work my way up closer to the eyebrow. The reason I do this is because when I used to go close to the eyebrow and then fill out the rest of the eyelid with the concealer afterwards, I found that I was getting concealer lines. Like, I could just see where I'd concealed the eyebrow and it wasn't blending in with the rest of the eyelid. So when I do it like this, it kind of avoids it, and I feel like I make less mistakes this way. But that's the only rationale. You don't have to do it this way, but I find it's much better. I find it's easier to conceal the eyebrow the way the eyebrow is naturally, and then afterwards I kind of match them together. I make sure that the front is aligned, I make sure that the same shape is going on, same length. And to avoid those lines that I was describing, when I go close up to the eyebrow, I blend it back down to make sure it's really merging in with the rest of the eyelid. So now I've concealed them individually, I can see that one eyebrow is a little bit higher than the other. So I'm just going to correct that by joining the front, and then I'm going to adjust the shape accordingly. Now I'm going to blend over the lid, preparing that base for when I do eyeshadow. I'm just ensuring that I have no build up of concealer, there's no bumps, everything's smooth, everything's covered. Because I'm using very bold colours, I'm just going to add a bit of Plouise Base in 0.5 and press that in with a clean eyeshadow brush. I'm patting it in, but I'm not blending it in because I don't want it to mix with the concealer as such. I just want to add a nice base for the blue eyeshadow to go on later. As a transition colour, I'm going to be using a pale orange shade from the Morphe 35B palette. I'm going to start with the outer corners, I guess so, but I'm going around her natural crease. But I start from that outside and then I work my way in rather than building up that product all the way over and around. There's no need. I'm just going to demonstrate that again on the other eye, just kind of focusing on the outer corner around the crease, but then I'm still blending it all around, but really building it up in that outer corner. Using Anastasia's Amrezy palette, I'm going to add this dark brown into her outer corner. Again, working that in, but not going to blend it all the way around like I kind of did with the transition color. I'm just going to stop halfway over her eye and blend it around. For this step, you really want to use a small crease brush, so a brush that's not too dense but not too sparse and very small in size. Using the same brush that I added the transition color, I'm going to blend over with a brown that's not as dark because it was too purpley for my liking. And now I'm cutting the crease. I do apologize that you couldn't really see at that moment, but I start from the middle and I go towards the beginning of the eye because I find it's easier. But whatever way you find, cut the crease. Don't use too much product so it doesn't get messy. To see the top of the eye, you just look upwards and that's going to mark out where your crease should go, unless you want to do it bigger or smaller. This eye should give you a much better view. I don't want it to be too big, the crease, so I'm just following her natural crease size, and I'm gonna make them look symmetrical. Gonna bring it slightly downwards because I want it to go all around her eye, but you'll see what I mean. I'm gonna have to blend it together and all of that jazz. Using a clean brush, I'm just gonna dab that, but again, not trying to blend it in because I want it to be white-ish. Don't want it to mix with the browns and all of the colors underneath. This is an old Too Faced palette, but any white shade we'll use, I'm just gonna work that in the beginning of the eye. With the blue, I'm going to start with the middle shade. I'm using the Amrezy palette for this, and it's like a blue, but it's got a hint of green in it. I'm gonna fill in the middle of the cut crease. That just shows me how much space I have to put the other colors next to it, so I always start with the middle. For this eye look, it's important that the cut crease holds its integrity, so make sure you're really filling in those colors neatly if you're trying to mimic this. Using the Morphe 35B palette, there's a slightly darker blue that I'm using. It also has glitter in it. I'm just working it at the edges. Not too much, but I'm blending it over. Using the same palette, I've gone even darker, but not too dark. It's important that you're very gradual with this process to give you a very nice gradient, especially because it's blue. You really want it to show. If you can't see, I've gone an even darker shade and I'm working it in with a crease brush this time. So it's kind of fluffy and it's allowing me to blend it in so it doesn't look too harsh and too dark. I will link the palette down below, but using a light blue shade, almost like a periwinkle shade, I'm blending the white and the middle blue together. Using the brushes that I had for each colour, I'm just going to go over each, adding a bit more, kind of blending them to the colours next to each other. I'm just going to do this until I'm happy with the gradient. The reason why I use each brush is because I don't want to remove the colour even though I'm still blending it together. To finish the eye makeup, I just added a white pigment in the inner corner and a little bit of dark blue on the outer. Now I'm just adding a mattifying primer on her T-zone. This is a really good trick if you have combination skin, and then I'm adding Mercier Supercharger. It's kind of hydrating but it also smooths at the same time. I'm just going to gently massage that into her face before I put the foundation on. Using the Complexion Pro from Sheglam, I'm just going to dot some foundation over her face and blend that over. I blend foundation by trying to spread it evenly across the face and then making sure there's no marks or brush strokes afterwards. Brushes tend to be very multifunctional and versatile, but I think this brush is really worth investing in. This is the Morphe face brush. I'll have the numbers down in the description. It blends most foundations very seamlessly and very quickly. I'm doing it slower to kind of show you how I'm doing it, you know, where I'm going. You see like how I'm going over the eyebrows. I'm just doing that very slowly so you can clearly see. But actually it does it very quickly. If I feel like an area has too much foundation, I just pick it up with a clean sponge and kind of blend over it. Using the Too Faced concealer again, I'm going to conceal under her eyes. I use a lot less now, and I'm going to conceal under her nose, nose bridge, forehead, and chin. Using the NFC Morphe foundation palette, I'm going to use the second darkest shade to contour with. It's still fairly subtle for her, but we can always build on it. I'd rather go lighter and then go darker afterwards rather than going too dark and then the contrast looks a little bit crazy. And I'm concealing her forehead, her cheekbones, her nose bridge, and I'm going to add Maven Baja lipstick as the cream blush. Sorry if I didn't pronounce that right, I know it's Spanish. You want to make sure you're not blending it downwards too much because you want to keep a lifted effect. So keep it as close to the eye as possible and in that direction that I've kind of sketched it if you want a facelift. To spread the concealer, I just swipe my brush, and to merge and blend it in, I dab. So that's what really combines the concealer and the foundation together. Sorry if you can't see because my hand's kind of covering, but it's nothing too hard and you've seen me do it in other videos, I hope. Because I applied the contour with a brush, it doesn't give me too much work to do. So I'm just going over where the concealer and the contour meet, except for where the blush is, of course. And just going over it to add more definition. Again, because the color isn't too dark, you do have to kind of build it up, but I think it's much easier to control. When contouring the cheekbones, make sure you're staying within the center, blending upwards and not going down so you'll make the whole face droop. For the nose contour, I'm using the smaller version of the Snatched Edges brush from Morphe, and I'm just blending it up to the eyebrow and then blending it sideways to just diffuse the harsh lines. Then I go over with the big contour brush to just make that even more blurred out. For the blush, to maintain that facelift effect, I'm going to keep it where it is, but I'm going to wiggle the product to get out of the line. I really like using lipstick as a blush because I just love how it melts into the contour and the concealer, and I love the colouring as well. To brighten up the face a little bit, I'm going to use Porcelain LA Girl Pro Concealer in the inner corners of her eye just to really brighten that up a bit. By brightening up the under eye gradually, this helps you avoid flashback. Once I'm happy with the blend, I'm just going to go over with the foundation brush, going over the blush, contour, a bit of the concealer, not all of it, but where it meets the foundation and all of the other products. Go over with the contour, and then I'm going to start setting with powder. I'm using Airspun translucent powder and I'm just going to work that in the under eye. The best way to avoid under eye creases in terms of blending is to go back and forth with the eye. So you're going against where it creases and then the opposite direction and just keep on going back and forth while pressing in powder. You want to dry the product so it doesn't have a chance to move along the creases. And then I'm going to bake the sides of her nose. I put powder on her upper lip and on her forehead. And my favorite part in terms of setting, I'm going to set her laugh lines or her smile lines and her dimples because she has lovely deep ones. Once I've marked out the areas that need powder, I'm going to just start working it in slowly, but I'm going to leave the sides of her nose to bake while I put on her eyelashes. While the eyelashes are drying, I just add a thin coat of mascara to help the blending process, and then I'm plopping those eyelashes on top. I find it so much harder to do eyelashes on other people because I'm constantly worried that I'm going to glue their eyes shut, especially if you get it really low. So I'm just doing it bit by bit to get it low, close to the lash line, but you know, avoiding gluing her eyelashes shut. And then I'm just pressing it up to make sure it's secured to the lash line. While the other eyelash is drying, I'm just adding a bit of powder blush to add a bit more redness to it, and then I'm adding some bronzer as well to add a little bit more definition to the contour. Using Inglot's highlighter, I'm just going to highlight the tip of her nose, her bridge, her cupid's bow, underneath her eyebrow, above her eyebrow, and then her cheekbones. I'm just going to go over with the foundation brush again. This is the brush that I'm constantly going to keep on going back into to make sure everything's blended together and looking flawless and seamless. I also make sure I dust away all of the excess powder that I was baking the sides of her nose. And then I'm going to add some blue just in the inner corner. I don't really like to put a lot of colour on the bottom, but I'll add a little bit just to tie it in. I'm setting with the rose water spray from Maven Beauty, and now I'm doing her lips with Barry M chocolate lip liner. I always find it hard to lip line other people's lips sometimes, but once I do that, I'm going to blend it out with a flat brush. I'm literally going to use a broken one. And then I'm going to add Madeline NYX Buttergloss, and that is the makeup all done. With blue eyes, it just felt right to have a nice subtle nude lip. Using the brush, I blended the lip liner. I'm just going to blend the lip gloss and lip liner together to make sure there's no harsh lines. And that is the face done. I'm going to go over with the foundation brush, brush the eyebrow hairs up a little bit to make sure they're standing, just in case I kind of pushed them when I was blending. And I'm going to set it again. I'm also going to add some mascara on the bottom eyelashes. But that is done. As you can see, she loves it, even though she hasn't even seen it at this point. But I was so happy with this look. I really hope you enjoy it. This is the final look once she takes down her hair. I'm absolutely in love. It matched her lovely dress, her lovely smile. She's so beautiful. I love doing makeup on her. Yeah, I hope this was very simple. If you have any questions, any suggestions, please comment, please leave a like and subscribe. Thank you.